Hey, this is Dylan. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. This is volume 1, episode 1. So this is the very first podcast. And I'm super honored to have Drew Powell from Crosspoint Church just give his wisdom on the article that was written. You might care about the wrong things. Drew, let's do it. Volume 1, take 2. For you listeners, this is my first go at this, right? And reasons why I have Drew Powell on here, him and I are good friends, and I know I can mess up and start over and take and do this as many times as I need to. So we've already talked a little bit, and I realized I didn't hit record on my end, which I just got done telling him a story. I didn't hit record with Jared at Elevation on the whole thing.
I know.
Brutal, but
Perfect, dude.
Drew, thanks for being here, bro. If you want to repeat the things you just said.
No, I'm not saying it anymore. I'm not going to do that.
I'm kidding.
No,
Drew and I
listen, what I was saying, Dylan, you sent over a list of all these like topics of stuff, articles that you've written, and I've read most of them before because they've been in your archives. And bro, it was just good to kind of go through that list and revisit a lot of just a lot of truth, a lot of rich stuff in here. And he's like, which topic do you want to talk about? I was like, man, all of them are really good. It's hard to pick, but this one topic that we're going to dive into about you might care about the wrong things, that jumped out to me. Just the title alone was like, man, I've spent so much of my time focusing on the minors and not the majors. And so to me personally, that was like, gosh, I need to revisit that for me. So that's why I chose that one. But bro, super honored to do this with you today. It's going to be fun.
That's good. Well, Drew and I have been friends for years, and we met years and years ago when I was serving at Central in Las Vegas, and we just stayed in touch. And Drew's been huge for me personally as a friend, but also professionally in the game of ministry. And so, Drew, I'm honored that you would even say yes to this. And these articles that I wrote in 2020, actually, I wrote 10 of them. I sat on it for almost now 2 years. And I feel like it's just a good time to maybe bring life back to these articles and get them back out. It's a free resource, right? My heart is to equip the church for free. I'm very fortunate, very blessed to work for a company called Amplio, and I can just be at a spot where I can just donate this material to the church. And I hope if you're listening, I hope this is just a tool for you and your teams. It's short and sweet. All of our articles are only 3 to 5 minutes long to read. For a read, because I want to know the audience, right? I want to know what they listen to, what you guys listen to.
Plus, that's our attention span anyway, man. We got about 3 to 5 minutes.
I know.
On to the next thing.
I know, right? So, this first one's called "You Might Care About the Wrong Things," and really the heart behind this was I was on I went with Drew Bodine, actually. Him and I went on a trip to Elevation Church. It's Elevation in North Carolina. And it was a learning trip for us, man. We were coming in with Mac, and we were going to just sit out and watch and listen and take notes and learn. And I feel like I blew it. I feel like I was only focusing on me personally. You can read this in the article, what I wrote on it. But when I left there, I felt like, man, this is great. I felt like it was a cool thing for me personally, for my Instagram account, and for like showing the world, hey, I'm so cool. I can do this. I'm here. I'm behind the scenes. I'm blah, 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 blah. And it just hit me like what a waste of time it was to put my energy and effort towards taking photos of Elevation worship on stage or whatever, and like just selfie style. And at the time I didn't really know a lot of the guys there, and so I'm sitting left and right of these guys, and I could have been picking their brains, I could have been asking them questions, I could have been learning, but I chose to care about the wrong thing. And so that's really the gist of this article. I don't know, Drew, I'm curious to know your thoughts, and just so you know, I want pushback. If you agree, if you disagree, if you want to add and take away, like this is not just come on here and agree with everything we write in these articles. It really is to dissect it down and to add and take away and agree and disagree. So I don't know, Drew, where do you stand with this?
Well, man, first of all, when you wrote the article, I really appreciated just your humility and vulnerability in writing that. I mean, it takes a lot to just admit, because the truth is we've all done that. We've all been there, especially over the last, 10 to 20 years, just what's happened in the church. The church has just become, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, it's just become a little bit sexier place to work and to be. And there's there becomes let's just be honest, a popularity contest that happens inside churches. And some of that is not all wrong. We inspire one another. We look to one another. We encourage one another. We all do that through our social media feeds. But man, as you were reading, I was just so grateful that you kind of went first in admitting the thing that we all do. I mean, I just have been guilty of doing the same thing, posting the selfies, taking the picture, because I want people to know that in a certain place, or there, I don't know, whatever it is in that moment that kind of strokes the ego.
Yeah.
And man, it's just so important for us as leaders to kind of check that at the door. Like, we'd be lying to say that like every single one of us battles it, because I think that's the shadow side of wanting to do great things for God, right? It's like we get into this because we want to make a difference. We want to have an impact, and we want to do significant things. And I don't think that's all wrong. I just think when it goes unchecked, just our own humanness and pride and everything. So when I was reading through that article, the one thing that kind of jumped out to me is just something that I learned reading something from Matt Redman posted. This is like, man, probably 20 years ago when I first started getting into worship ministry and creative ministry. He just talked about significance, how we all have this drive to do something significant. Most of us that are listening or watching this now, we're leaders for a reason. Like, God has gifted us to be leaders, and we have a heart to lead, a desire to lead, desire to influence. Those are good things. But at the end of the day, we're wanting to do something significant with our life. I mean, I just turned 40 just this last week, and I've spent the first probably 20 years of ministry wanting to do something significant, wanting to get to that next church or the next place, next whatever, and then also fighting envy of other churches that felt like they were doing things more significant than what I was doing. But Matt just said in his just kind of brilliant way, he said, man, the goal is not significance, it's just obedience. Like, we have to high five over just being obedient to what God has called us to do and called us to do in that moment. And we really should be able to rest in obedience. And that's a lot easier said than done. But Matt just went on to say every significant act in all of history was just a simple act of obedience. Like the stories we tell now, even you look at scripture all the way to the cross was humble obedience that obviously changed the course of history. And so I think it's important for us as leaders, as we're wrestling down the significance thing, is to, like you said in the article, to maybe take a step back and say, what actually matters in this moment? And it's normally an act of obedience. And stop me if I start rambling. The other thing that just jumped out to me,
No,
Dylan,
dude,
you read this.
I'm like, my mind is being blown right now. Like that's what I'm most excited about with these interviews and articles and all this, is to learn from you guys. And so you ain't rambling, brother. Preach it. I'm all ears.
Well, I'm preaching to myself, man, because I'm in that place where, and I've even said this recently. I've told my wife, I was like, man, in my 40s, I really want to build something. I want to, like, you just get to that place where I'm like, man, I want to have something to show for my life. And so I'm still in that mindset. I still go back to that. And again, I think we got to be careful. Like, that's not a bad thing. I mean, God puts things in our hearts to want to build. But my team surprised me. I get to lead about 25 to 30 amazing, talented, crazy, chaotic, nightmare, but beautiful creatives here in Nashville. They surprised me with a birthday party last week, and part of what they did was they went around and gave some words of affirmation, which for me is like, that's my love language. So give me a good attaboy,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things someone said is, someone that works really close to me says, hey, I know you want to build something in your 40s, but look around this room, like you're building something here. Like, this is like,
so good.
And I was like, man, it humbled me. I started crying. I was like, man, I just forgot. I took my eye off the ball that it's about, sometimes it's about who you're building, not what you're building.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, Dylan, you were talking about looking around and posting the pictures, and you're like, there's people here that I could be either investing in or I could be receiving from. And so many times when we're focused on ourselves or our own ego or our own status or influence, whatever, we're missing the people that are around us. And man, that was just one thing that jumped out at me, that article is like, man, building into people as leaders, investing into people. And that's the long game, because you don't get the immediate likes or the immediate whatever.
Yeah.
It's normally someone that comes back 20 years later and said, hey man, you took a chance on me, or you believed in me, or you spoke this word, and you don't get the immediate ROI. Right. But it's so much sweeter in the long term to focus on people over product or projects. because we're always going to have another event. We're always going to have another project, always another product to create. There's always another series or another whatever we're doing.
Yep.
But the opportunity to love and serve people is really the sweet spot. And that usually just takes us getting out of that moment, focusing on being obedient to who's right in front of us.
That's good. Hey, I want to dissect that down because, you know, as a listener, you may be a lighting designer to a worship pastor on the platform. You may be a creative guy that's behind the scenes that is the pastoral role for the whole staff, like yourself, Drew. I mean, so, you know, for me, like I'm curious to know thoughts on if I'm listening to this and I go, man, I do want to make a shift and a you know, a redirection of my focus. You know, as a lighting designer, you know, I'm going to design this awesome look on this stage set, and then I can't get my phone up quick enough to take a picture and get it on my social media, so that I can get that affirmation, you know, online, those likes, and get all that. But that's okay. Like, I'm not saying don't do that. Like, definitely do that. Like, whatever you want to do it. But so as that lighting designer, as that worship guy, you know, what's some good first steps for me to actually start shifting my focus? Like, you know, it can be practical, it can be long-term, it could be just maturity on my end. But, you know, as a 20-year-old who is, you know, in the church world and doing good things, serve in ministry, like, I want to first say thank you, you know, for the listeners who are out there doing that. Like, keep your head up and keep grinding. But maybe there's a shift here that we can add to our teams, for ourselves and for those who we lead. So, Drew, what do you think? I mean, what's a good first action step on making that shift?
Well, a couple thoughts that come to mind, and I'll probably have something better to say after we get done recording. But the first one is this: you know, we want to share the win and we want to own the loss, you know, as leaders. And so for me, it's like, whether you're doing lighting or you're leading on stage or behind the scenes, whatever it is, bring someone alongside you that you can share the win with. And you can say, hey, you know, as leaders, we're always, you know, give ministry back as a value for us at Crosspoint, one of our values. So we're always looking to not go alone in what we're doing. So you use a lighting example. I mean, what young 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid can you bring alongside you, and you can kind of show them the ropes and whatever. And so even if you are celebrating something, because I do think we need to celebrate wins in the churches, and I think that's actually something we got to do a better job of as leaders. And so I appreciate what you said, Dylan, around not feeling guilty over celebrating something that you're proud of. Like, there's a place for that. And sometimes we move so fast as leaders that we don't stop and tell stories and celebrate our why. Like, why does this lighting even matter? All that good stuff. But if you got someone coming alongside you, you know, just using your example, posting it, man, celebrate the person who helped make it happen. So it's not about you doing something. It's about, man, you know, I was able to empower this person. And even if they only did 10% of the work, you're still able to say, man, I'm super grateful for so-and-so and whatever else. I think that's the first thing that popped in my mind, is make sure we're always sharing wins. And then if it doesn't go well, we're owning losses. Like, for me as a leader, if something goes wrong, I want to take that L for me. I want to protect my team from those things, especially from like the senior pastor and like that. Like, I'm never throwing anybody under the bus. I'm never talking about, I'm like, you know, we had just this last weekend, we had several things go wrong. And I went to our senior leader and I said, hey, here's what went wrong. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. And I'm owning it. And it's not going to happen again, like that kind of thing. But it wasn't oh man, so-and-so really dropped the ball. So we're going to always share and distribute wins, and then we're going to personally own losses. But the second thing I would say in it is, I think if we can pause for just a second before we say the thing or post the thing, or, you know, we're picking a lot about on social media, but I think the idea behind your post was, you were talking about a specific social media instance, but the idea was, when we attempt to kind of take credit, or we let pride or ego come in, or we need some affirmations, because let's face it, some of us work in environments where we're not getting a whole lot of attaboy, attagirls. Like, we're not getting a whole lot of affirmation from our senior leaders or from our people. Leadership can be very lonely and a very thankless place. And so some of it might just be reaching out for needed and deserved affirmation. But I think if there was a pause, a moment of prayer, and maybe this feels way too micro, but if there's a moment of prayer before we said the thing or posted the thing or whatever, and just said, God, what am I looking to get from this? Like, what am I needing right now? if we could have just that 3 to 5 second conversation with the Lord, because he might say, man, I'm proud of you. Like you're more than enough. You don't need this. You're looking for something that's going to be fleeting, that's not going to be fulfilling anyway. You're going to have to keep chasing. So I think if we could just surrender those things to the Lord, and then if you do the work with the Lord, and you're wrestling out like, hey, no, I want to inspire. Like I do think there's people, and we've got great friends, Dylan, that I feel like are called to inspire the church. One of our closest friends is a guy named Steve Brewster. I'm sure your audience knows him well. He's a coach, man. He's an inspiration type guy. When Brewster's posting stuff, he's encouraging me. Like I would be ashamed for him not to post, because I would be missing out. You're in that boat, Dylan, with the stuff you're doing. It's like, it's not an ego thing. You're called to inspire people. And so when you surrender that and kind of lay it up on the altar, if you will, then it kind of allows God to do the inner work first, so we can wrestle that down. My pastor says that the living sacrifice, the problem with the living sacrifice is it tends to get up and climb down off the altar. And so it's so true for me. It's like I need to every single day wake up and say, God, I surrender myself as a living sacrifice. I'm not doing this for the applause of man. Help me, Jesus, to find my complete fulfillment in you. Like, can I find my affirmation in you? And then everything else is just kind of icing.
That's so good, bro. Gosh, that's so good.
I'm
Man.
learning, man. I'm learning from you. That's why I picked this article, because I mean, can I give you just a real-time example?
Please.
So we have a worship night tonight at our church, and I mean, I do have just a phenomenal team. I'm so proud of them. I've been more disconnected in this process than I've ever been. I haven't been in the meetings. I haven't seen any of the rehearsals, and the team is playing this great, it's like string quartet, I mean, a really beautiful thing. And you know what thoughts I've been wrestling is, this whole thing is going to happen and it's going to be amazing. And there's been a couple moments, and I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm like, man, I wonder if people are going to realize that I didn't have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Like there's a credit side. Like, who's going to get credit? I can't get credit for it because I didn't do anything. I didn't pick the song. I didn't pick the flow. And of course, I quickly moved past that to, no, wait a minute. Like, I'm leading these people who are thriving and stepping up and taking ownership, and they didn't need me to speak into these things. Like, all those are bigger wins for me. But I'd be lying to say if I didn't have the moment where I thought, man, I wonder if like my leaders are gonna, or my peers are gonna think, well, do we need Drew? Like, he wasn't a part of this. And so there's that constant, like, just wrestling it down, man. Like,
and I don't ever think it's gonna go away. Like, I don't think that desire is ever gonna go away of like, of wanting some attention or the credit or the point back. But I think any good leader like yourself, and anybody that's listening to this who wants to become a better leader, exactly what Drew just said, exactly what you just said, Drew, that's got to hit home with a lot of people.
Yeah,
because you are obviously doing well as a leader when you can pull out, you pull back, and your team still flourish. They still get the job done at hand, and they still do it with excellence. And you're a leader that's just kind of 10,000 feet above, looking down, going, man, this is good stuff. My teams are functioning well. That is only a testament to your leadership. But it's so easy to lose sight of that because of the at hand credit that you kind of hold your hands out and you're like, I did all this is my team, but everybody's kind of like patting everybody else's back because they're the ones that are actually doing it. And so I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
Well, it's easy to find our identity in what we do, obviously. So for me, my default response to that thought that I had this morning was, it goes back to people. Like, tonight is going to be great production, it'll be great product, great whatever. Like, we're going to have a great worship night. Then it goes back to, then how do I support, bolster, encourage, speak into the people? And I immediately went to, I remember what it was like. And you know this too, because you've done like some of the best events, best experiences in the world you have produced and led. There's always that moment day of where you're like, oh man, is this thing going to fall apart? Is this thing going to work? How is it going to actually land? I mean, you've done the work, but now it's day of, and the day we're recording this, it's the day of the worship thing. So right after I had that thought, I sent a voice memo to one of my leaders, she's leading the whole entire like creative, like the whole entire event she's leading. Well, I just sent a voice memo to her, and it was like, hey, I know you're feeling pressure today, but I want you to be encouraged. And I want you to know that no matter what happens, God's proud of you. I'm proud of you. You can lead without pressure. You've done the work. And something I tell my kids before every game is, hey, I'm proud of you before the game even starts. And I told her that. I was like, hey, I don't see you as one of my kids, but I will tell you, like, you don't have to do anything to win my approval tonight. But I don't think I would have got to that if I wouldn't have first wrestled down this idea of like, do I get credit? Is the product or the production more important to me than the people? And I was able to say, no, the people are more important. So my win tonight is going to be to sit back and watch Chelsea have a win.
Yeah.
Because she's newer, she's younger. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. I'm like, man, I'm going to leave there tonight. No one's going to know that I had anything to do with it, except for I'm going to say there's a great leader on my team who just had a win, and I'm going to be able to pour into her. And to me, I'm just at a place in my life where that kind of stuff means more to me than getting the tags and the ats and the whatever, those accolades. Those things come and go.
Yeah.
And you have to always pursue them. Like you got to pursue the next one. Like, and the next one's got to be bigger and better. So
yeah.
Anyways.
No, dude, that's so good, bro. I think, man, I hope that this touches one person listening to this. And if you are listening to this and you feel like you can make a shift with this, caring about the right things, I just want you to know from Drew and myself that what you do matters, and you are doing a good job. Like, keep doing it, keep fighting. Ministry is not easy. Obviously, it's not an easy thing, and I just want you to know you are doing a great job. So this has been great, Drew. I think this is just an alignment. I think this article is an alignment. I think in my heart, it was written for me, and it was a wake up call, a check from myself, which is funny. I won't even say the stats on the article, but it's by far my most read article.
Is it really?
By far. And so I don't know if it was because it's my first or what, but man, I think it got the attention of several people, and I hope it added value to people and to their teams. Shoe game is strong, bro. I'm all about shoes. Like, I'm not a shoe collector. I don't do shoes. I have a nice pair of shoes. I wear those shoes every day. I'm not hating on those who have shoes and shoe collections, but man, care more about yourself and the way you're growing, in the Lord, and B, in your leadership, than what's on your feet. And so I think this is just a redirection of things that do not matter, right?
Yeah.
And I am the most guilty one when it comes to caring about things that do not matter. Even right now, real-time example, I've been up since 8 o'clock this morning in this office, flipping it, turning it around, mopping, sweeping, cleaning. I work for one of the best integrated companies in the whole world, and I have to go to Best Buy to buy things because I cannot get it right. AJ is going to lose his mind when I send him this clip. What did you do? I sent everything you needed, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, man, what matters is the person listening to this, hopefully grabbing a hold of this truth that Drew, you're sharing, and it changes their life. Like, that's why you and I, that's why I do what I do. That's why you do what you do, is for that life change. I'm at this level as far as leadership goes in the church world, but man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you, Drew. We're going to keep these short and sweet, and I think we'll add on to these. I think we'll keep going. I think we'll keep adding. Again, this is volume 1. And so I don't know how many volumes we'll do. I think we'll do volume maybe up to 5, 10 per volume. And so there's going to be a lot of content that's going to be flooding out there that I hope is just a resource for the church. It's a resource for me. I write this stuff for me. And so, oh man, well, thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. I just remind everybody out there, focus on building yourself instead of building your brand. I feel like God will give you the influence as you go. One of the biggest things I caught when my time at Central was we had a bunch of young leaders who wanted the microphone. Man, they wanted the mic. They wanted to speak. They wanted to be on the platform. You're talking about a massive platform. And so if I can get on that stage, man, if I can get Pastor to give me hosting or give me the message this weekend, if I can get that 15 or 20 minutes of that little fame spot on that platform, And I don't know if it was Drew or Judd or someone said, man, when God gives you something to say, he will also give you a microphone. And I was just like, man, that is so good. And so just a reminder, like Drew, watching you also in the last several years from creative pastor to teaching pastor, like, man, God's given you a platform. He's given you a voice, and he's giving you the microphone. If you're listening to this, God will do that. I mean, it's just timing. Just continue to grow yourself, continue to find yourself in the word, continue to dig in with your own leadership, focus on yourself more so than your brand. And I think God will bless it. And I think he's going to use you to do things that you can't even imagine are in front of you. So Drew, appreciate it, bro. Anything else you want to add last minute? And then tell us how we can follow you, and tell us how we can stay in touch with you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Well, you didn't ask me to say this, but I will say, I appreciate you, and I appreciate just the content you're creating for us and the church leaders, and Amplio specifically has been a great just gift to me. I love about Amplio and your mission is that you are so relational. I mean, you guys really do care, and there's not like an agenda behind it. And so you just love serving churches, helping churches, man. And so thank you guys for doing that. I mean, this is one example of just how you're just giving out free content to just help us out. So again, you didn't tell me to say that, but I'm really grateful for Amplio, and thanks for having me on, and I just appreciate our friendship, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. How can we follow you on what's your social stuff?
Yeah, just at Drew Powell, and go to crosspoint.tv and you can follow us there. We do a podcast called the Anything's Possible podcast, just for our church that I get to host. And so,
awesome.
Yeah, man, I love to meet. Let's stay connected. I love church leaders. I love local church leaders. I was born a pastor's kid, and so anytime I get to connect, whether it's online or in person with a church leader, I love it. So hit me up.
Yeah. Cool thing about Drew is that Drew and I have, like I said earlier, have become good friends. And so if you know anything about what we're doing at Amplio, we are hosting events all over the country, and the golf tournament, the Worship Classic, which we'll be releasing soon, but Worship Classic 2, of course. But I told Drew and Brewster when they showed up, I was like, man, my boys are here. Like, that's right. It was such a big deal to see Drew and Stephen Brewster show up. I was just like, my boys are here. So if you hear this and you're like, I want to join one of those events, more than likely you'll see Drew there at one of them. Oh, man. So I'll never miss, man. As long as you invite me, I'll be there, because I love to cheer you on, and you're one of my favorite leaders on the planet. So yeah, man, I'll definitely be there. I appreciate it, man. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for hopping on. And yeah, bro, love you, man. Love you, buddy. Thanks. All right, man. We'll see you. Hey, thanks again for listening to today's podcast. If this touched you or inspired you to do something, then act on that. Subscribe, send it along to a fellow staff member or to a volunteer. Really help move these resources along. It's my heart, it's my desire that these are free. They're for you. It's written for me personally, but I thought I would share it. Thanks again for listening to today's podcast.